Engine 1 from car 1. Car 1's on scene at Subin Command. Give me a CAN report.
What's going on, everybody? This is Mike Goldstein, stickers of the CAN report. Nozzle Tov. We got a friend coming from Texas, Mr. Pete Bowman. I came highly recommended from a good friend, Joe Johnson, down in Texas. And if anyone knows Joe, that's a complete compliment. And Joe is extremely passionate, and he loves to promote people that care about the job as much as he does. So we have Pete Bowman, and I'm excited to talk to him. He is an aficionado, if you will, down in his area with engine ops, and he's very passionate about that. So we're going to talk about that today, who he is and what he's passionate about. Pete Bowman, thank you so much for being on the CAN Report.
Man, thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate being out here today.
You're welcome, my friend. It's a pleasure to have you guys. If you haven't clicked like or subscribe, please do, especially on the YouTube channels. It helps to keep this going. Makes me know that you guys are listening, paying attention, and I can keep going with this program. Pete Bowman, thank you very much for being here. I'm excited to talk to you. I don't have your bio in front of me, so I'd love for you to introduce yourself to all of us.
Oh, no problem, man. Well, I'm Pete. I have a few years. I got 18 years in the fire service. Started down in South Texas. I moved up towards the Houston area. I don't work for Houston Fire Department. I'm not one of those big city guys. I work for an ESD, or Emergency Service District, out here. I'm a driver. I've been a driver there for about 5 years, 7 years altogether with the department. Before that, I was a chauffeur where I came from. I work for Lone Star College as an instructor, teaching fire academy. I also do EMT school for Humboldt ISD, and I also teach as a guest instructor for TEEKS, for Advanced Engine Company Operations. So there's a little bit of stuff that I like to do. I love to teach. I love to give back to the community. I'm real big about that kind of stuff. The whole mindset is an old fireman's main job is to teach a young fireman to be an old fireman, right? So I'm in the middle, so I'm trying to do a little bit of both. Get to be an old fireman, but also teaching that younger generation. So very blessed.
Oh, fantastic, dude. I love it. And you married, have kids?
Yes, sir. I'm married, beautiful wife. She's not here right now. She's teaching a class, an EMT class as well. She's also an instructor. She's a paramedic instructor. So she did a little bit of time in the fire service too, but her niche is paramedicine. And then I have a daughter and a son. My daughter's here, but my son, he lives in another state, so he's not here. And I got 3 dogs, so you might hear them tip-tapping around the floor. So.
Oh, cool, man. I love it. That's why everyone's, I think, has heard my dog. I have a Mastiff, and when she hears anything, she just barks, and it's pretty loud. So no worries at all. That's a great, man. That's a great background, dude. I love talking to dudes from Texas, because the way you guys put things is just so simple, and the phrases are great. And you guys are like just super humble and nice, and just love to give back. I can't say enough nice things about the dudes from Texas, man. I love to talk to you guys.
Hey, man, well, we appreciate it. Let me tell you that, man. The guys down here, well, no matter how big or how small, we appreciate it. We really do.
Absolutely. So we're going to dive into it, man. So I hear that you love engine ops. And since you teach it, you must love it and obviously know a lot about it. Your world is a little bit different than ours, because we have to deal with the wintertime, ice, snow, all that stuff. In Texas, obviously, I'm sure you still have to deal with non-hydrant districts.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure. Yeah. So you deal with drafting and all that good stuff. So I'd love to hear your point of view on what you teach and some things you picked up along the way. So indulge me, my man. What do you got?
Man, like I said, I'm very fortunate, very lucky that they let me teach, let alone that I was able to get this knowledge from a lot of different other guys. Don't get me wrong, it's not all for me. But, I'm a firm believer that the world has become a lot of lever pullers, right? We got a lot of guys out here who are pulling levers, but they never really taught why. They were never taught, why do we pump these PDPs, or why is preset set at this? Let alone, a lot of guys talk about, like, when it comes to drafting, suction, they're like, oh yeah, the pump sucks, the pump sucks. It's not true. We're creating negative pressure and using, atmospheric pressure to push water in a direction that we want it to go. Some guys don't even realize that there's a high pressure and a low pressure side to every pump. And those are things to think about. I just did a class the other day about that on intake to intake supply, or dual pumping, was what we call it.
I saw that.
So yeah, I got a lot of questions about that, because it's just using the hydrant pressure to push water from my pumper, whatever water I'm sending it to another pumper. I get to be in PSI mode. That pumper gets to be PSI mode. Our pumpers don't fight each other, because we're trying to complement for each other's pressures. It's real nice. The only downfall is that as you get to the further pump, you can do 3 or 4 pumpers in a row if you had the pressure for it. But the further you get away from it, it's the less pressure, less intake pressure you have. So those are things to keep in mind. But I'm very fortunate about it, man. I'm lucky that my fire department allows me to do that. It allows me to go out and teach some of our younger generation firemen, and sometimes I get to teach some of the older guys. It's pretty cool when the older guys listen to me. But I'm pretty lucky they get to let me do that. And
So
then,
Pete, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I
no,
was curious: is how did you get into all of this? Because some people really do love to be an operator, and some people are just kind of like, well, it's like we talked about earlier. It's the next step. How did you become so passionate in the fire service for this specific field of it? So like you started as a firefighter, and then you moved up to be a driver, chauffeur, or whatever we want to call them. How did you really just get so involved in it?
man. So I've always been part of a training division of subtype, whether it was my first fire department or the fire department I'm at now. And when I was a fireman, it was always about hand lines and nozzles and all that stuff, which is important. I'm not saying not having to deploy your hand lines not important. It is very important. As the first line goes, as the fire goes, right? But um, as time went on, I got a little older and I started moving into that driver role. And the younger generation below me was asking whys, a lot of whys, a lot of, well, why do we pump at this pressure? Or how does hard suction work? Why is there 2 forms of hard suction? Low level strainers versus jet siphon assist. They had all these questions, and frankly, brother, I didn't have the answers. I had no idea that the EOs before me told me this is how we do it, Pete. That's how it's going to be done. And I didn't ask why. It wasn't my generation, or my generation didn't ask why. We were like, yes, sir, no problem, sir. I'm gonna get it done. But that's not how this new generation is. This new generation wants to know more than just the meat and potatoes. They want to know how we cook the meat, how we cook the potatoes. And because of that, I got real tired of not knowing the why. And I tell guys, hey, man, I don't know the why, but I'm going to find out for you. And that's what it started at. It started with simply one young man asking one time, why, Pete? And I'm not having the answer. So I was like, I'll go find out. It's my job. I'm the EO. I'm going to go find out this answer for you. And it just kept going. It kept snowballing. And one answer would lead me down another rabbit hole, which lead me down another rabbit hole, which then God knows leads you down another rabbit hole. Next thing you know, I'm on standpipe operations, right? And so I'm all over the place. But it was that thirst of a younger generation wanting to know why that drove me to finding out the why. And that's one of the big things I love teaching is I love teaching that why.
Mm-hmm. Love it, dude. So you weren't kind of like told when you started the whys, and you just were just pumping because, or just doing the operations just because that, again, that was just the way you told, shut up and do it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so you're giving back to not only the younger generation, but you are giving back to yourself, because if it wasn't for them asking the why, you would never have gone looking for it.
100%, 100%, man. If it, you know, man, there's a lot of guys at the house, right? A lot of the older heads, they'll turn around and they'll say like, well, they'll ask whys to them. What? Hey, why so and so? The senior fireman, senior EO, senior officer. And they're like, because I said so. And it used to work for us. It used to work. That was the answer, and it was never good enough for them. And I see this a lot, man. I see this a lot in the next generation teaching the fire academy. I see it a lot too. Those guys, the young cadets today are asking a lot of whys. And it really humbles you when you don't know the why. And you're like, well, I don't know. And
I think too that the whys get asked because they're now in a generation of it's at the palm, it's in their palm of their hand.
yes.
So if you don't have it, they're gonna go look for it. But they might look for it already, and they already might have the answer, right? They're already looking at the answer while they're asking you the why. Because I know I do it. Like as I'm asking the why, it's right here. I just want to know why we do it that way. So I kind of have an answer from what I found online, but I want to know why my department does it a certain way. So there's not only just the why of as a general question, but also the question of why do we as a department do it this way when I saw it done this way. So, like why is there, that's the question, is why are we doing it this way? Not of why it's done outside our department, but why are we doing it a specific way?
Oh, yeah. And I get that a lot too. I'm very fortunate and I'm gonna say that a lot. I'm very fortunate, to God be the glory, of course, as always. But man, like I worked for several fire departments over the years, and I have a part-time job. I love going there. It's a good place. You know, and they love to ask me, well, why does EasTex do it this way versus why does our department do it this way? And I'll tell them, well, it's because of the equipment we have, or it's because of the way our pumps are set up, or it's because of the hose. Like we have different types styles of hose. We have True ID at my full time. I have Combat Ready at my part time. So different friction losses, different expansions. And then when you start talking about that, and you start talking about, well, that hose isn't even, 1.75 inches. That's 1.88 or 1.82, depending on the type of hose, depending on manufacturer. We're looking at closer to 2 inch these days. So then that's why our friction losses are lower on a lot of our hoses. And then of course we have the lower pressure nozzles. And those are all those things where it's like, as you start adding them up, it's like, okay, Department A has a certain type of hose, certain type of nozzle. Department B has a different. Well, why does our neighboring department flow to a different rates? Well, it's because our hoses are different and our friction loss is different. And then don't get me started on selective flow fog nozzles. I love fog nozzles, just so we're clear. I'm a fog nozzle guy. Yeah, that's right. I'm one of those guys, but I hate the selective flow.
Just so other people, if they're not familiar, let's elaborate on selective flow. What are you referring to?
So at least down here, what we call selective flow is a fog nozzle where it has multiple settings. It may have like a 30, and then you'll switch a dial and it'll go to, let's say 90. And then you'll switch a dial, goes to 125, switch a dial, goes to 150 and ends at like 200.
So the selectable gallonage nozzles?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we just call
them. You still use those down there?
We do. Those are normally like your backup nozzles now where we've damaged 2 good nozzles. So now you're stuck with this one until we can get a replacement.
So since we are talking about that, touch on the selectable gallonage nozzle. I'd love to hear your point of view of why they're not good.
So, so knowing the history of it, right? So the selective flow came out to combat the stack tip. So you have the stack tip smoothbore. Selective flow came out to fight those two things, right? It's still a market. It's still selling something, no different than, McDonald's versus, whoever their competition might be. But the point is that it was just a different style of nozzle. But the problem is that when you change from 90 gallons per minute to 200 gallons per minute, and the common denominator is that no one tells the operator, hey, I'm changing GPMs. When you change GPMs, you change friction loss. I have to now increase to meet the new demand of flow. And I still have to take in the friction loss that happens in between. And that gets on to that mindset with like the old generation wanted the cookie cutter answer, like 15 PSI for 1.75 inches. That's not true. Friction loss tells us that depending on what I'm flowing at, especially a selective flow, depending on what section I'm in, what selection I'm at, depends on what my GPM is, which means depends on what my friction loss is going to be. So lower GPM may be lower friction loss versus higher GPM is going to be higher friction loss for the same nozzle, same hose, same nozzle pressure. But the gallons per minute has changed. So we have to turn around and either increase for demand or decrease. And we've also, I'm a nerd in a lot of ways. So I've turned around, went out, did tests on these nozzles, right? Hooked them up, turned around, put in inline pressure gauges, and the pressure amount that increases on the backside of those nozzles, when you go from 250 or 200 gallons per minute down to 90, you're pushing 150 on back pressure alone, which is where we start turning around and start talking about jacket separation over prolonged periods of times on fires. And those are things we have to think about as driver operators. That's moving forward. That's the essence of it, is really starting to see that it's not just about, hey man, that nozzle flows this and its PDP is 140 no matter what. That's just not true anymore. We have changed that from the legacy hose that we used when we were in the early 2000s and the 90s to now today with the new hoses that we have now, with the new jackets, the systems they have, and the better expansion rates they're having, the bigger and bigger diameter they're having. And then on top of that, we're talking about lower pressure nozzles now. The selective flow, 100 PSI fog. Fixed gallonage fog nozzles can be 50 PSI. So you're looking at 50 PSI reduction in your nozzle pressure, which is 50 PSI reduction overall the whole system. And that's when I start, I tell a lot of EOs this. Firemen say, kinking. Man, the hose was kinking real bad. But an EO should say, man, we had poor jacket expansion. And that's what was causing these kinking problems. Minus the doorway, of course. But when we're talking about just hose sitting in the yard, firemen should say, hey, man, bad kinking. But an EO should say that's bad hose jacket expansion. And that's what those are.
I love it, dude. I do think that the selectable gallonage nozzles are kind of going to the way of the dodo. There's not a man. That's why I was really surprised when I heard that you guys still semi run them, because a lot of people don't. It's kind of an old school thing, and people realize if they've had issues with their pump discharge pressures and dialing them in, especially if somebody on the nozzle doesn't know exactly what they do, and you start changing your GPMs on that nozzle, you're screwing up your EO, and he's now trying to figure out how to dial in your nozzle when you keep changing it on them. So they've kind of gone away with them, but they're kind of like they're becoming instinct, but extinct, I should say, but yet they're still around. It's weird to actually hear somebody talk about them. So it's cool. It's a great description that you gave, and you definitely do love talking about it. So when you're teaching at the academy, what are you teaching now? Is this just basic classes, or is this more advanced?
So when I teach at the fire academy, it's mostly proby school per se. A lot of departments call it, or cadet school. It's their first steps into the fire service. They do get a touch of driver operator with me. We do turn around. We go over drafting. We do go over nozzles and different style of hoses. And then, of course, we also do, we go as far as walking with the nozzle and flowing water to knee walking with the nozzle. As we all know, as the new thing, it's not really a new thing, but it's a thing that fire service is going to. And we do all of those things. And we want them to know, like, hey, man, this is why, you're getting nozzle reaction. And we try and explain nozzle reaction. At that young stage, though, a lot of it kind of doesn't hit home like I would like it to, but it's still good information for them. Normally, I give out my number so that when they're future, if they need help, they can always call me. But when I go to TEEKS and I teach at TEEKS, that's when I really get into the meat and potatoes of nozzle reaction, flowing, understanding how to get proper flow rates with using flow meters, inline gauges, as I'm sure you guys know up on the northern side of the world. We're a little, and I'll tell you this, on the southern side, we get a little bit of your technology a little later. So that's why we still got some of them selective flows, man, still cruising around. But those are all things that we that I think is important for these guys to learn. But it's not just all that. Like when it comes to the TEEK side, or even when I come and I start teaching engine company operations to small fire departments in the area, hoses is one thing. Understanding your pump pressures, understanding your PDPs is one thing. I tell them, man, like if you're an EO and you're standing around, you're not doing anything. Remember, as a fireman, you needed that attic ladder. The attic ladder needs to be at the door. You don't need to wait to be told. Get the attic ladder up there. Get that positive fan ready to go. You don't got to put it in play yet, but have it up by the door.
I love that, dude. I when I'm up here, when I'm teaching, and I love teaching engine ops as well, whether it's pumping or hose work. That's a big thing I touch on, is that the engine operator is usually the busiest person on the fire ground. It honestly is a huge pet peeve of mine when I see a pump operator leaning on their pump panel or just leaning on their engine. Like if you have time to lean, you got time to clean, right? Like they always say in the military, right? So it's the same thing. Like you shouldn't be leaning as a pump operator. There's so much to do, especially in more shorthanded communities where you're going to be helping to stretch that line, clear the hose bed. You might have to even dead men that pump to get the things going and then come back to your pump. You're going to have to help stretch that hose line in there. You might even have to force a door. You might have to throw in numerous amounts of ladders. And you're also watching the exterior of those operations to make sure that things don't change around them, right? You're going to watch conditions change, grow, whatever is going on. And then you're pretty much, as they're working inside, you're going to be relaying that information to command or to your dispatch center. So there's a lot to do. And even when you get more people to come to that scene, you're still doing stuff. You still now got to get your water source established. There's all these things that go on. And it's not just a 1 minute deal. Like you should be tired. You should be doing a lot of work. And again, it's bothersome when I see people lean and just go, well, I set up my water source. Now there's nothing else to do. And I'm going to just lean on my large supply line and just watch the show.
Brother, man, you're 100% right. And it kills me. It really, really does. One of the big things that I've been trying to push lately down here on the southern side, or at least in my area, of course, is for promotional exams for EOs. I think reading smoke should start being a part of those promotional exams. All EOs should be having to go to a reading smoke class, because who's standing outside in the front yard waiting for the next engine company to get there? Who's watching the house? Who's honest to God your safety officer for the first 5 to 10 minutes of a fire? It's your EO. It's that engine operator or the ladder operator. They're the ones, though. ladder operator may be on the rear, turn around, forcing a back door, turn around, getting that search. So, I'll give them that. But engine operator wise, you're up there in the front, man, and you need to keep those eyes out for your guys. You're 100% right, man. I know that here in our area, our engines run a little different. We run a little heavier than y'all. At least I think so. I might be wrong, and if I am, I apologize. But we run K12s. We're in chainsaws. We run RIT packs. We run a little bit of rope bags as well.
Oh, we got it all.
So yeah, we kind of carry a complement of everything, and it kind of falls to us. So on top of all that, I'm also a big component of the engine operator. If it's available, throw that 24-foot extension ladder, throw that 14-foot. If we got a 2-story house, cover that window on the alpha side for sure, man, because your guys can be up there. That's a safety thing. So I'm also a big component of waxing my ladders. I like to take some wax. I like every month, at least once a month, those ladders come out, they get waxed, they get washed off, cleaned off, and re-waxed. It's important for that ladder throw. And single man ladder throws, it's an engine operator's job all day long.
We were throwing this was about a month ago. We were doing some work at one of my stations, and we just decided to throw some ladders, and it actually, the halyard broke on it. As I was throwing the ladder, I was pulling it, and it just snapped. It was your typical twine rope, and it snapped. And it was like, man, I am so glad this happened right now.
Oh yeah.
And not on the fire grounds, because that would have been real dangerous, right? So, like you hit a good point that we should be pulling out our ground ladders not just once a year for annual testing, but cleaning them, waxing them, checking that rope, checking to make sure that organic material is actually not frayed and becoming worn out. And at least, like I said, thank God for me, it snapped when we were just doing some simple training and we were able to fix it. But those are important components. As a pump operator, you're doing it all. Your engine's got to be good to go. And we are the same. Like we carry a complement of saws. We have forestry saws, we have vent saws, we have the K12 saws, we have RIT packs. We have a lot of stuff on our truck. And same thing, like pump operators got to know where everything's at. They got to know how everything works. We got to get stuff right to the door. If someone needs us, you have to be a mind reader. Like you said, you're reading smoke, you're reading conditions, but you're also reading what they need before they even ask for it. So those tools need to be there. So when they step out that door, boom, it's right there. Or you see them walking out, boom, I got a bottle in my hand ready to swap it for you, so you can go back in and go to work. Because I shouldn't be told, hey, get me a bottle. I already know that I need to get you a bottle. And like you said earlier, like throwing ladders, no one needs to tell me to throw a ladder. I'm going to pull ladders off my truck and I'm going to throw them to where I think they need to be thrown. All those things are inherent training for us as engine operators.
Man, and I agree with you 100%. That we're on I love it, man. We're on the same page. And I kind of want to now I want to go out and just do stuff. I want to go out and train, and that's a big thing for me. I love doing that. But I will say this too, and I was talking about this actually today. I was at the gym and I ran a couple of young guys, and we were talking about at the gym today. And it's man, how often when you look back and you think about your career, so many times we went out and we were like, hey man, let's go pull lines, or hey, let's go do vertical ventilation training. Hey, let's go do a scene size up on this building. But it always feels like the EO gets the bad end of the stick when it comes to that. Least amount of training a lot of times. Hey Cap, let's go out and I just want to tag a hydrant today. Well, you know what? When we're there, we're tagging a hydrant. Let's go and pull a couple of hand lines. Yeah, but let me be the focus of the training on this one. Yeah. And I do feel like as EOs, we kind of follow the wayside sometimes. In the beginning, you get all the training in the world. You get all I call it the first due training. Everyone loves to train for the first due fire. And everyone loves to train for that. Man, I'm gonna be first in. I'm gonna catch my own plug. I'm gonna pull 3 hand lines. But we don't train real hard on the second and third due companies. So a lot of times, third due may not have very much. When I come to fourth due, I'm gearing out, man. If I'm fourth in on the line, I'm gearing out, and I'll meet you at the door. But if second or third, you might have some roles to play, and those are things that we got to think about too. But I do feel that a lot of times as an EO, man, it's real easy for the train to get pushed to the side for me. I'm very fortunate though. My crew, my captain, and my firemen, man, they allow me to do these crazy things like intake to intake pumping. And I love a full tap on a hydrant. I don't know if guys know what a full tap on a hydrant is, but it's three supply lines, all 5-inch, all coming from the 2.5s and the main steamer, maximizing that flow of the hydrant and reducing friction loss. That's another thing too, is that as EOs, we kind of forget 5-inch has friction loss. It's not a lot, but at high GPMs and a short distance, it impacts our intake pressure. And those are things where we need to move into the 5-inch instead of starting to get slowly away from that 3-inch. We've been using that 3-inch for a lot over the last couple of years, but that 5-inch is really, really where we need to start being. And it has to do with properties of water dynamics. Like I said, I'm a real dork when it comes to this stuff. And
I love it.
I like to look at physics when it comes to water. Water will always go to the area of least resistance. Drafting shows us that. And same thing goes for 5-inch. You'll get a reduction in friction loss, which will increase your intake from your hydrant if you go from 3-inch to 5-inch. And it's, don't believe me, just do it, right? That's all we got.
We run 4-inch up. A lot of departments here up north, we run 4-inch.
Okay, see, so we used to run 4-inch, and then we slowly moved away, and we went from 4-inch to 5-inch. So that's where we're at. We got a couple places around here run 6-inch, and I don't want to be on those fires.
Hell, all right.
Yeah,
Dang.
man. Yeah.
Man, that's a great stuff, dude. So going back to so when you're teaching at the academy, you're teaching the basic stuff. And honestly, I thought it was really cool that you do touch a little bit on how to be a pump operator or some of those dynamics for the recruits. And I was thinking like, man, I wish we did that for all academies, Fire 1, or even let's say you get into Fire 2. I think we should teach that more. We teach a lot about hose operations, right? We teach about moving and flowing. We talk about nozzle reaction. And at least for our academy, we talk a lot about the dynamics of different hoses, the different, and then the nozzles. We talk about, the inner workings of a smooth bore and a combination nozzle and the nozzle reactions of those. But we never actually showed them how the pump works and how it's so important to watch that dynamic change if you're pumping too high or you're pumping too low. And I think it needs to be introduced in the curriculum for our cadets, for our students going through the Fire 2 program. So it's not completely foreign. If they ever go into a full-time department, at least they have an inner working of, I remember pulling, I know like we talked about, we don't want to be lever pullers, but at least they remember pulling those levers, understanding those pressures that they're either going up or down and what happens when you're doing that. I think it helps to get them ready for understanding what's going on with the science behind that nozzle. And I would love to see that at academies all around of actually teaching the students and not just engine ops of nozzle work, but actual engine work, being a pump operator.
I think it's an important thing. And the reason why we started doing it down here was because, unfortunately, I don't know how it is up where you guys are, but for down, at least for our area, we got a shortage. There's not enough of us. A lot of our volunteer fire departments transition into ESDs, and all ESDs are emergency service districts that are now getting paid. So you go from a volunteer fire department to an ESD. So now they need more personnel. They're getting paid personnel, and it's unfortunate. And I'm not pro it at all in any way. But a lot of these departments, smaller departments, will turn around and put a 2-year guy on the pump panel, and now you have someone who just got off of phase training for being a rookie or probationary fireman. He or she starting that second year, which to me is that real rookie year. Probation year is your time to really kind of mess up and learn from. Rookie years that I'm gonna give you some rope to hang yourself, but I'm gonna be there no matter what kind of thing. At that time, that's when they're starting to pump around here in some departments, not just in the Houston area, but all over Texas. And that's why it was kind of important. We're like, hey, we need to start introducing this now because our customer base, which is the fire departments, are expecting them to start learning this a lot sooner than they should. But it's because they have to, and it's tough.
When you're teaching at TEEKS, and you said it's more advanced, what is some of the advanced things that you're teaching?
Man, so when it comes to advanced is a word that TEEKS likes to use, and I said it, and that's on me for saying it. But yeah, it's we call it, the instructors, the cadre of that call it just engine company operations, but TEEKS calls it advanced engine company operations. And what really, honest to God, it's understanding more of the water dynamics that goes behind it. It's understanding why we're going to triple tap, why we're going to double tap. It's also going to be more hitting on drafting. There's a portion where me and another instructor will give a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation. We'll use pictures from our own departments where you can see us actually doing it. We're not just talking about it. We're doing what we're saying. So these guys can better understanding how to gate down systems, how to flow multiple hand lines. Which I feel like multiple hand lines that shouldn't be advanced. That's just normal operations.
Yeah.
But then I started teaching some of these guys. It's like, hey man, don't be afraid to move up and take the doorway, take ownership. And it's something that the SWAT team guys would talk about: is take ownership of a room, take ownership of the doorway. And I'll tell these guys, hey, look, as an engine operator, don't be afraid to come up and take ownership of that doorway. And you're going to hump that hose and you're going to push that. And then we start talking about, as an engine operator, not just being at the pump panel, like you said earlier, don't be lenient. And there's a lot of work to do. And then we do tandem pumping. We'll have a second pumper come in and we'll do some tandem pumping as well. Not as much parallel pumping because we're not really using that kind of stuff, but tandem pumping, we do like to do that sometimes. And then we also do supply, just general supply from one pumper to the next. And for some of these young guys, that's the first time they're getting to see it. We recommend you got 2 to 5 years in the fire service to take the class, so you have a little bit more understanding. But honestly, it's those things. And we'll also throw a little bit of deck gun work in. That's another thing that we don't really ever train on is defensive fires. How often, at least for us, we don't like, oh, well, let's say we got to go defensive. We're not going to go defensive. But eventually, we all go defensive. And we don't ever really train that direction.
We have there's actually a really cool video. It's a great story. It was in Hampton Beach, New Hampshire. And this happened a few years ago. I think it was almost 5 years ago. And they were short staffed. So they had multiple calls going on. It was just a crazy day for them. And I think they even had multiple fires going on. And the engine operator, I think it was just him, showed up and he had a good fire going in this strip, and he, with the help of a police officer, I believe the police officer tagged the hydrant for him, and he started flowing that deck gun, and he just took that deck gun and just flew it right into the strip that was on fire, and it kept that fire at bay till the other guy showed up and be able to help him out. But thinking outside the box, it doesn't always have to be that hose line, especially short on manpower. Like the deck gun is okay to use. And Massachusetts, actually, it was just another one in Massachusetts a few months ago, and I forgot where it was. I think it might have been the Brockton area. Same thing. They had a good fire going. They had plenty of manpower on scene, but they said, hey, take that. We're going to shoot that straight across. It's going right up into that second story. Just shoot it and go. And they took that deck gun and right through there. They knocked that fire down. It's okay to do that. I see a lot of videos out there where, if you're the initial piece and you got good fire going, go ahead, knock it down. If you can get it going, it's obviously it's eat up a lot of your water. I mean, you'll get almost 1,000 gallons a minute flowing. Make sure you're attached to a hydrant so you don't lose your tank. But there's nothing wrong with doing it. It's if you got fire blowing, take care of it.
No, and amen to that, brother. Like, honest to God, it's one of those things where we're so hesitant, right? Oh, well, we're using a deck and we're going defensive and we're losing this fire and we're going to be on the news. It's going to look bad. The other companies are going to make fun of us and all sort of stuff. You can get a hard reset with the deck gun and be back in the fight where a fire you were going to lose and now you're going to win. You're coming in for the W, and you just need that little bit of assistance. That's all it was. That's important, man. And we had a fire not too long ago, similar thing. First arriving pumper, they get tied up attacking, trying to get access to this mechanic shop. The fire spreads and starts, threatening the neighbor's house. Man, the second dude, an engine, hooks up a water supply, supplying engine one. He sees it, doesn't even hesitate. He hops up there by himself. No one told him anything. He hits that with a burst from the deck gun, resets that side of the structure because the guys weren't inside. They were still trying to make access, and bought us the time we needed. And he got us supply. Guy came out looking like a hero, man.
And I love what you said, that you hit on that one little point right there. There was nobody inside. And that's really obviously very key, is when we're talking about deck gun operations, we're obviously making sure that we don't have men operating on that floor and knocking them down and taking out the floor beneath them and then falling down into another area of the house. So obviously deck gun operations, we're still being smart, and we're making sure we don't have victims or other people inside that building where we're going to potentially endanger them anymore.
No, of course. Like, we don't want to, because I don't know if anybody out there has ever been hit by a deck gun or it will take you off your feet and it will hurt like a mofo. It does.
So almost 1,000 gallons of water coming at you.
Oh yeah, and it easily
full
takes
force.
Yeah, boom. Next thing you're standing up thinking, I mean, it's going okay. Next thing you know, you're like, what happened? Where's everybody? Yeah, it happens.
I love it.
I've had that happen to me before. It was it's a young guy, didn't know any better. He didn't know his deck gun valve was open. He charged it, boom, hit me. And I was just like, wow, okay, well, that's what that feels like. Never forget that. So, but
Ooh.
it happens.
So,
And now,
when you're teaching your engine ops class, you got to have a lot of patience for that,
oh
right?
man,
There's a lot of moving parts. And I really do think that because I feel that being a pump operator, it's an artwork. You know, there's a science behind it. You're an artist, especially when you're drafting. And if no one's ever drafted before, I do think that is art right there. That takes some serious care, and you're an artist being able to pull water, get water from, from places that people normally don't think of, and you got to be able to troubleshoot that. And there's a lot of moving parts. You have your porta tanks, you have your hard sucks, you have all these other different devices, your strainers, that everything that goes along with it. So when people aren't familiar with it, it can be kind of frustrating. I think we got to slow it down and also let people understand the science. Like you said before, when we were talking, you're not sucking water out; you're displacing the air. But you have to slow it down, and you have to tell people that. And how do you go about when you're doing those type of bigger operations, when you're getting into the meat and potatoes of drafting? What is your style?
man. So when it comes to teaching that kind of stuff, my like, I love it when it comes to drafting, because there's so much equipment. So I know it sounds kind of silly, and I could do this in a PowerPoint. I could, but I don't like to do it in PowerPoint. I'm not a big PowerPoint guy. So I'll take my class outside, and whether it's 5 guys, whether it's 30 guys, whether it's 50, doesn't matter. We're gonna go outside, and you're gonna look, and you're gonna touch the low level strainer. You're gonna touch the barrel strainer. You're gonna touch that jet side assist. I want you to touch. I want you to feel and look at that hard suction and the different sizes and different diameters of hard suction. There's also difference between hard suction for drafting and hard suction for hydrants, which aren't the same thing. One's made to be under pressure versus the other one's made for negative pressure. But we'll talk about that too. And the real easy way to look at it is one's wrapped and one has a different style coupling. So, but we talk about those things, and they get to see everything first. And then once we've looked at everything, I'll ask, hey man, who got questions? What's your question on this? What's your question on that? I get some good questions. I get some out off the wall questions. There's always the crazy what if, like what if a helicopter crashed into the pumper? Well, then we're done. That's it. That's over, man. But and after we've done all that, then it comes to the setup, and I'll turn around and we'll go out there. I'm gonna put everything together. I'm gonna do it. You're gonna watch. If you have questions while I'm doing it, I'm gonna be explaining every little thing, every little part, any moving section. Do you have to use the jet siphon portion of the jet siphon assist? No, you don't. But it helps. But you don't have to use it. It also helps for circulating water, so you don't have to circulate water somewhere else. And we slowly hit every little part, and then once we've done all that, we get our first draft. I love to turn around when we do our first draft. You can hook up to the intake if you have the right couplings. You can hook up directly to the tombstone or the intake, but I like to take it off just because I want them to hear that pressure change. I want them to hear that air movement, and all of a sudden you hear that primer kick on, and you see the hard suction pull down into the water a little bit, and man, we're pulling. And I start telling them, like, look, I'm yelling, because I got the pump going, and I'm a loud guy, so I'm yelling at these poor guys. And look at it, it's starting to, here it is, it's starting to pull. And you start seeing the hose kind of start lowering down. You start seeing all the water movement. They hear that changeover finally. You hear the pump just boom, boom, and it makes those loud noises, and it takes it. And you got that first prime. And I tell them, like, there we go, boys. We did it together. And they're like, well, you did everything. Like, no, you were here. I was here. We did it together. So that means that before they've ever turned around and touched really anything, they've already technically gotten a draft. So now we're just going to build on that. That's all we're going to do. We're going to build to the next one and build the next one. And we'll break it down, lose the draft, do it again, over and over again. Every now, some guys, don't get me wrong, some guys need a couple of them, need more than a couple. But that's okay, because they're going to be part of another team, and like, hey man, I want you to get back into this other team, help them, because you need a little bit more time on it, and that's okay. It's just about taking time. The hard part, I think, about EOing, doing the training for a driver operator, is the time. It's a lot of time. It's not one of those things where we can pull the hand line once and just keep flowing it over and over again. It's really about the breakdown and setup of the drafting operation, whether you're doing turbo draft, whether you're doing conventional drafting, whether you're doing jet siphon assist, whether you're doing burp drafting. Burp drafting, a little bit more advanced for some
Now
of
that's an artwork right there. Burp drafting is that's an. I I remember I was working a fire scene, and we were at the fill site, and I for whatever reason could not get a prime. Just it was kind of an older truck, just shit was not working. And so we tried to burp draft. I tried to burp draft it, and I couldn't. I just could not get it done. And the deputy chief I was with, he nailed it. He did it. He did a great job of getting that. And it's one of those skills. Like if you have to really practice on that, it's not easy. There's a lot of movements involved in that one, and that's something I still need to practice on to this very day. I am not proficient in that one,
man. And like I love. We'll do it like in a small setting sometimes, the burp drafting, and when the guys are sitting there and they see all the things that have to happen, and I can do it quick. Like, I got a buddy of mine who I work with. He does it way better than me, but I can get it pretty quick. And when I do it, they're like, "Whoa, man, that was way less than using the primer." And I'm like, "Yeah, man, burp drafting, it's a big risk, but you get a good reward out of it." But you're putting the truck in a stressful situation, and if you're okay with that, and you're all right with putting it in that position, you can get an amazing draft quickly without using a primer. And a lot of times we'll graduate to that where, hey, man, we've gotten a couple of good ones, good draft, conventional drafting, as I call it, just good old fashioned primer work. Well, you feeling confident? All right, man, let's try a burp draft. And I'll do one first. I'll show them. We're going to rev up to like 150, turn around, slowly turn on our intake, see that water turn around, start pooling. And then once we get that hard movement of the water, everyone wants to slow down. Oh, hey, slow down. Like, no. We got to let it ride. It's a one-way ticket. We're going to let it ride. And we let it ride. It comes out the other end. We open the intake all the way. And, man, there we go. We got that good burp draft. Of course, I got my tank fill open or something circulating water. And when I see that for the first time, they're like, well, that's wow. And I'm like, let's do it. Now let's just turn around. Let's break it down. Let's do it. And it's tough. It's really hard on the truck. But if you're okay with that and you're all right with that 15, 30 seconds, depending, and believe me, it can be as quick as 5 seconds. But if you're okay with that, it's a nice little drafting technique. It really is.
Absolutely.
So that
I nailed it.
That and turbo drafting, man. We do. I don't know if you guys do turbo drafting up there, but that's a big thing too down here too. So those guys, that's a lot of moving parts. Like I will admit, I don't like it when they're like, "Hey Pete, you got to teach turbo drafting." I'm like, "Oh, that's a lot of those." But
so talk about turbo drafting.
Oh man, turbo drafting. You're paying Peter to play. You're paying Peter and you're paying Paul at the same time, right? I got to have water to get water. We're turning around. We're using a big giant metal device. It's not light. And we're using a Venturi effect that's built into the system. We're going to turn around, hook up, 2.5 if you want. 3 inches better recommended, but you can use 2.5. You don't want to use less than 2.5. Turn around, you sink this device into the water, connected with a 2.5 to your discharge and a 5-inch to your intake, and you send water to it. It goes through a big U, and it shoots through a small jet on one side. And that jet turns around and gets you that jet siphon, or that Venturi effect, that pulls water in, and you guys spend water to get water. But the water you can get and the amount of maintaining you can do with it is really, really impressive. We use it a lot for our dump tank operations. So if you're going to do a dump tank operations, instead of the water coming back to our truck and then us trying to resupply, we'll turn around and do that to a dump tank, and then we'll pull a double draft out of a dump tank. So we'll have our turbo draft going and a conventional draft out of the dump tank, and we'll be supplying other apparatus. And then there's always dual drafting, which I love when I started telling guys that you could do this twice with the same fire truck, not just one time, but twice. And dual drafting is awesome too. But turbo drafting is just 3-inch from your discharge to the device. It goes through a U, gets sent back to itself through a 5-inch, and you get water back in return. That's it. But the only downfall to it is if you're getting, let's say, 1,200 gallons a minute return, 300 of that gallons is going back to getting your water. So you're always paying yourself to get that water. So not 100% of it is going to be used for fire operations, but it's not a bad system, and it's pretty easy on the truck for the most part.
Dude, I love that, man. That's fantastic. So do you teach all of that at TEEKS?
No, so at TEEKS, it's more all that. So some of that stuff is done, but for the most part, no. Those are a lot of those little classes I get to teach on the side. Those are some of the little side gigs I get to do. going around teaching some of the small fire departments when I'm lucky to do that, or even my own fire department. Sometimes my fire department will host a little class, and I'll get to teach some other guys that, as well as going to my part-time and teaching up there. Those are the kind of classes I get to do there. TEEKS is really more about that first in, second in engine company with a hydrant area. But I touch on all of those things in my PowerPoint, and then we'll go out and we'll do some of that stuff. We'll talk about it, and they'll get to see some of the equipment. But we don't tend to do too much drafting at TEEKS. Their hydrants are amazing. They're industrial hydrants, so we actually have to do a lot of gate down. There's a lot more gate valve movement in it that you'd be really surprised about. And I got to show these guys more about how to lower pressure than it is to increase pressure, which is a pain, and to say the least. But it's a good problem to have sometimes.
Yeah. Now, who taught you?
Man, so that's a lot of guys, man. It wasn't just one guy. Over the years, there was a guy named and forgive me, I forgot his first name, but it was a Captain Clark from back home. He was one of the first officers for me to start teaching me.
Did you say it was a Captain Clark, like my Captain Clark?
Oh, is it your Captain Clark?
Sorry. Clark? So we had, I thought you were referring to, so we had this icon in New England. His name is, he passed away, but his name was Captain Clark. Everyone knew him as Captain Clark and Old Clark. And I thought you were saying like that as referring to my Captain Clark. So you had a Captain Clark.
I had a Captain Clark. Yeah. And he was the one who taught me. I'm sorry for your loss on Captain Clark, though.
I appreciate it, brother.
But I had a Captain Clark as well, and he taught me. He was my first training officer, and he was the one who instilled in me that if you know something, you need to pass it on. If you know it for sure, you need to pass it on. And then my first fire chief his name was Michael Clack, man, and that man believed in the heart of the volunteers. I remember I got a good chewing, a good. I deserved it. I earned this. I got a good chewing, and he told me, man, he'd take the heart of 10 volunteers over a paid guy. At least at that time. Now they're paid department, but and it helped me remember, and I still think about it to this day. Like, man, those little things from the very beginning, the first steps in my career, helped shape me into being the guy that I wanted to train, wanted to give back. And I have to say it goes back to Clark, Captain Clark, and Chief Clack. Both those guys really turned around, helped push me in a direction, and I'm very, very fortunate for it.
It's awesome, dude. I love having mentors that you can remember, from years ago, right? 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And those are the ones that always stick with you. And it's honestly even some of the bad ones that stick with you because you remember what not to do because you got yelled at, and made you feel like shit. But the good ones like make you smile, and that's what makes you want to give back to your students and to the new guys that come into your department is when you have somebody that teaches you these tactics and the ways to do it, but they always made it fun and that they had this faith in you and wanted you to be able to absorb that knowledge and give it back to the new guys. Those are the ones that always make me smile. So when I'm teaching something, it always makes me think of the ones that made me have fun when I was learning from them. So I love to be able to give that fun to those students and the new guys.
Man, I think that's important. Is like a lot of my classes, I'll start off with like, look, I'll tell them like, look, man, just so you guys all know, I'm going to talk to you like a man, and I'm going to say some things. I'm going to be loud, and I'm going to be a little mean, and there's going to be some point I'm going to forget your name. And if things are going bad and the truck's cavitating, I may say something like, and excuse my French, but I might be like, hey, fuck face. And it's words of endearment. I tell them, I said, it's love. It's not me trying to be mean to you. I legitimately forgot your name because we've only met 5 minutes ago kind of thing. But at the end, I always tell them like, hey, did we have laughs? Yeah, we had laughs. Hey, man, did we learn something? Yeah, we learned something. Did I teach you something? You did. Did you guys teach me something? You did. So ultimately, did anyone get hurt? Well, other than some hurt feelings, no? All right. Then let me tell you guys, overall, it's a W. We're going to take a win for this one. And I think that's important, man, that as long as we're giving knowledge and receiving knowledge, it goes back to that old mindset. Once you've learned it all, it's time to retire kind of thing. There's always something else to learn. Mm-hmm. There's always another piece of the puzzle. I'm still learning to this day. I really, really am. Like I just found out the North doesn't use selective flows, so that's something I learned just in this moment here, man.
Well, there's still some people that use them, but they're kind of like I said, they're kind of like a rarity now. So when I see them on departments that I go to visit, I'm like, wow, holy crap, you still have one of these? And they're usually the dusty ones. They're tucked way in the back, so they have them, but they really don't use them. But yeah, I love what you're saying there, dude. Like we call those fire nuggets. So when you go around that group, man, and you're talking to your students and you're asking them, did you learn anything? And did I learn anything? We do that up here. That was what I learned from Captain Clark, my Captain Clark, that he used to teach at the academy. And once we finished our day on the drill yard, we'd gather in a circle, and then he would want to do fire nuggets, and he'd go around the circle asking everybody what they learned today, and then he would talk about what he learned today. So it's really important, and I do that when I teach. And I always give the reason behind why I'm doing this. We all talk about the why. So when I'm doing that circle and I'm talking about the fire nuggets, I explain to them why I'm doing this and why I want to learn from you guys, and I want you guys to know what you learned from me. And I learned that from Captain Clark, that he did for many, many years on the drill yard. And I love it because it's that feedback. Without the written feedback of, it's so formal, we're actually hearing it straight from the horse's mouth. Because if you go around that circle and say, all right, tell me what you learned today, and they go, that's the worst thing you can get. Yeah. Like either you weren't listening or I didn't do my job as a teacher. So let's try it again. So like you had to have learned something, whether it was just like, where the PTO was on the engine, like something must have triggered you today to have learned something. You took away something. I want to know what that was.
Oh man. And to me, like that's the gift. That really is. Like, I don't get me wrong. Like, I love helping people. I really do. I love doing my job. I love making the runs. I love getting the calls. Doesn't matter 1 a.m. in the morning call, whether 1 p.m. the call. I love it. I love doing my job. But man, when I get to teach it and I get to see that student, or, argumentatively student, whatever you want to call them, that individual learning. And man, the first 15 minutes, you could just tell they're like, what is he talking about? And then at the end, they're like, oh man, it's this. It's as simple as that. It's just simply the extra water is what we're using. Or they finally hit that conclusion and it lights up in them, and you realize like, nah, this guy got it. This individual has finally realized what's going on here. And you're sending them away and they're going to better their department. I hope so. At least I hope. That's something that, I'm sure you've been to dozens and dozens of conferences. And that's one of the big things, right? It's always the 1%. You guys are the 1% of the guys who come to the conferences. Well, I think one of the disconnects is we don't go back and always teach it. And I'm always telling my guys, man, don't be afraid. Don't forget. Your job is to learn while you're here. But your other job is when you go home, wherever home is, you better start teaching. You better give the information. You better pass it, because that's what I'm doing to you. You got to do. That's what you owe to me. That's the debt to me, is that you got to pay me back by giving it back to somebody else. We got to spread it, man, because there's obviously issues in our fire service. Across our nation, we have our issues. But we can start turning around and closing those gaps if we all just willing to listen a little bit and willing to pass on and not be afraid that, oh man, that guy's after my job. He's just trying to learn just like you are, and it's a promotional test anyway. So, but those little things, man, it really, really comes down to it is honest to God, just, man, being blessed. We're all blessed to get to do this. And then every now and then someone comes along, they find a niche, and sometimes it's hose handling. Sometimes it's pump operations. Man, there's some amazing officers out there. There's some amazing chiefs who are just changing the world and this way that we do see things. But you find that niche, man, you got to run with it. You got to really hit it hard, So
I love that, dude. Yeah, absolutely. There's someone for everyone, right? So you just got to find it. You got to hone that. You got to pull it out of them. I think it's the biggest thing, again, as being instructors, being as motivators, senior men, officers, chiefs, part of my job is finding that and pulling it out of them. You see that spark, you see that niche, that a certain fire in them, or something they actually just seem to get really well, but they're kind of afraid or timid. It's our jobs to pull that out of them and let them know, like, hey, you're doing great. Let's focus more on this. I'm going to help you be even better. I'm going to show you some more stuff. And then they grow into be a great pump operator, or, a tailboarder, or, extrication, truckee, whatever. But it's us to be able to see that and be able to pull that out of them and help hone those skills and make them better than us. That's really what it comes down to, is that I want somebody to be better than me. And if you're jealous because somebody becomes better than you, then just leave the service. And again, in my background, I felt like that was the case with me from my previous departments. I felt like the more I started to learn and develop, I felt there was like a threat to certain people, and it wasn't honed, it wasn't crafted. It's just kind of like, no, you can't learn this way, no, you can't think that way, and you just stay at that flat line. And it's our jobs as being more senior. And again, it's not an officer level kind of thing. It takes all levels. Bring those people up, the young ones, especially the ones that you see that have that certain craft and then that certain spark. You got to draw that out of them and harness it and help them understand, like, I'm going to make you better. Cause I always say, I want you to be better than me. So I can look back, 10 years down the road and go, wow, that dude's amazing. And I can take some satisfaction to know, like, I helped to make that person a little bit better. It might be a little bit selfish, but that's okay.
Oh, it's all right.
Right? It's all right to be able to sit back and reflect on that and go, I did that, or I had a hand in that.
This is gonna sound kind of silly, but we're just trying to be someone else's Captain Clark. That's what we're trying to be. Yeah. We're trying to be that guy where it's like, hey man, they look back 10 years and they're like, man, thank goodness Mike was there. Thank good he was there, with the C.A.N report and helping us out, helping me learn, helping me get better. It's those little things like that are going to shape the fire service. We stand on the men and women who stood before us. We stand on their legacies. And it's our job, as we stand upon their shoulders, to make a better foundation for the next generation, because that generation will stand upon our shoulders and the things that we did. And it's important that we give them a stable foundation for that. And I believe it, man. I believe it to my core. It might be kind of naive of me. It might be silly of me. Some guys would be like, oh, man, thinking too highly. But it's the truth. It doesn't matter what rank you are. We're all doing it right now. This is our turn. Guys turn around like, man, I wish I knew 10 years ago those were the best times in my life. Brother, if you got 10 to 20 years in the fire service, right now is your time to turn around and make that change. If you got less than that, it's your turn to learn as much as you can, so that when that 10-year mark, 11-year mark, it could happen at 7. I'm not saying it has to be 10. It could happen at 7. It could happen at 5, depending on your area, depending on your department. When it's your turn to start leading and it's your turn to start really training, man, give it everything you got. Whether you're just simply the guy who's standing off in the corner, hey man, you got the extra group of guys. When we're trying to teach all the stuff that we think is important, we have that 5 extra guys. We're gonna have you teach them. That's still your opportunity to shine. It doesn't matter how small you think it is, how insignificant you might think your role is in that training evolution. You're still out there doing it. You're still out there training. You're still out giving out knowledge, and it only builds you to turn around and take over for the other guys, the Ray McCormicks of the world, right? Someone has to take over Ray's spot one day. Some other lieutenant, maybe be from Chicago this time. Who knows? But someone's going to take over those roles, right? And it's our job to help them along the way as best we can. We got to, man. We got to give it back. It's the brotherhood, right? We talk about the brotherhood. We talk about the sisterhood. But, man, sometimes we don't show it all the time. And I know that has nothing to do with EOing, but it has more to do with like fire department pride, but still.
Dude, that's okay, man. That's what's great about this program. It doesn't matter, man. We could talk about you, we could talk about engine operators, but sometimes we just love to talk about the pride that we have for this job. And that's what we want people to get out of this, is that we love our job and we love to be able to talk about it. And this is the platform to do it. So like you bursting with pride and passion, get it out, brother. You do you.
Hell yeah, bro. Hell yeah,
man. Man, I love it, man. You can tell you really do love your job. I can tell you do love giving back to the fire service, and it's fantastic to hear. So like Joe Johnson wasn't wrong saying that you're a good guy, because you definitely are. And you guys down there in your area are some solid dudes. Like I said, I had the pleasure of working with Joe Johnson at Bearers of the Oath. With him in Guam. I believe is his nickname.
Yeah, old Guam. Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. And those dudes were top notch. And again, like he was larger than life. Like he's loud, but he knows his shit. And he listened to all of us. So it wasn't just him trying to bark orders. Or again, when sometimes you go to the conferences, somebody always it's like the dick measuring contest, and everyone's, mine's bigger than yours, and let me show you how much I can do or how much I know. It wasn't the case. Everybody was very humble there, and working with Joe, like we all fed off of each other's ideas of what we're going to do for the next evolution, how we're going to succeed as a team. And, we worked on each other's strengths, and it was really cool to watch. And like I said before, the fact that I had never met him before and never worked with him, and we were operating and working like we had worked with each other for years. That's the brotherhood, right? Like that's when you work with guys who are dialed in, love the job, have passion for it, love to train, it comes out. Like it's the ones who are the slugs who sit on the couch and haven't done anything in 10 years, but want to talk about like they've done something just yesterday. And then they go to do the training. Those are the ones that usually stand in the corner afraid to fail. Yeah. And those are the ones that I see and go, okay, let's, I'm not going to embarrass you, but let's get out here. Let's do some stuff. Let's see what you can do. It's because you've paid money, you've been slouching for a little bit. Let's put you to work. So same thing with you, man. Like you're obviously you're not slouching. You're doing the work. You're educating yourself. You're doing your homework, and you're giving it back to others.
Yeah, I appreciate that, brother, and I agree with you, man, 100%. One of the things that I think is just part of it. You touched on it, was the fact that being afraid to fail, right? Some of the best training opportunities of my entire career was in a failure. Man, you're out there training, and all of a sudden, hey, we're going to do these 5 steps or these 10, whatever, and we're going to accomplish this mission. And if we don't accomplish it and we fall short, and man, you could find out so much about each other for when you fail at something, but then you try as hard as you can to still accomplish the overall mission. And you had to make you had to divert a little bit, and you had to change some things. And then you almost sometimes find a new way of doing something that you never thought of before. It may not be new in the fire service, but it's new to you and the 5 or 10, 15, 30 guys you were doing with. And you're like, oh crap, if we actually do that next time, we could cut down 3 steps.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens in a failure. That doesn't happen every time you win and you get, oh, we did everything we're supposed to do. We got it right. Man, one of my favorite things when I'm teaching hose handling, right? We use this flat load with 4 dog ears. It's a modified modified Minuteman, or however you want to call it. Well, there's a moment where if you grab the wrong ear and you try to deploy it as a triple load, it will come out short. And I love it when it comes out short, because whenever it comes out short, you always see that guy look kind of a little defeated in himself, and he or she's about to put down the line. I'm like, no. I start yelling, don't put down the line. So I throw the nozzle and the hose over your shoulder. They do it. So now start walking backwards and hand over hand feed yourself. And all of a sudden the triple load comes out and it's there. It's a flat load. So no matter what happens, it will deploy as a flat load if you just keep walking. You just walk 200 feet, 400 feet, 800 feet. It's still a flat load. And in that moment, man, those are one of my favorite times is in that. And I love that. It's just those little things, right? I don't know. It has nothing to do with pumping. And I'm sorry.
Okay.
But,
it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, to quote Rob Ramirez, dude, practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. Right. So that's really important when we're getting that stuff done, is that we're gonna fail, but we want to make sure we know where we failed, so we could pick up those pieces, put them back together, and know not to do it again.
No,
and honestly, dude, like, man, I failed so much on the fire ground, like on calls, like I've totally flopped stuff all the time. It just happens, but honestly, probably nobody else knows that I did it. I know I did it. And I go back and I write in my book going, man, I totally screwed up that hose loader. Man, next time I'm going to bring this tool with me instead of not doing this tool, and whatever it is. But some people might notice, some people don't. The homeowners or the business owners, they don't notice at all. But it's the people with the trained eye that notice, or again, just me, because I want to be that better person on the drill yard or on the fire ground. And that's that pride, and that's that passion, and because we care to make sure that we're doing our job the best that we can, that what we trained for. And like I said, that's why we give it back. And it's okay to fail. And those people that hide in the corners or in the shadows because they're afraid to fail, just get out there. It's okay. The drill yard is where you want those mistakes to happen.
Exactly. Like the halyard breaking. The halyard breaking on the drill field, that's where you want it to happen.
Yeah.
Those failures then, that's where you want it to happen.
Yep. And knowing we go back to pump operations and hose handling and nozzle work, like, I want to know where those kink points are. I want to know where my fail points are. If not pumping at the certain pressure, is it doing that violent reaction? So I know, like, I have to look out for this on the fire ground, or is the way my hose is loaded in my truck, it's going to pull tight. It's going to, it's hard to take off the truck. All right. I know to prepare for that in a certain way, in a certain manner. It's all those things we do to prepare for the job, but it's never going to be perfect.
No, yeah, man.
Right?
One of the things I love doing that, and this goes back to Eon, I love lubing my valves, right? I love, man, on Tuesdays when it's
Talking
Wednesdays.
dirty.
Yeah, I'm talking real dirty. When it's Wednesday and I gotta lift the skirt a little bit and turn around and lift that cab. I love getting in there and just greasing up everything I can, every valve, all that stuff. But I didn't, and guys ask me about that. I get questions like, "Hey man, why do you lube the valves?" Because I had a valve fail on me. I had a valve get stuck closed and I could not open it. And we have Pierces down here. Don't know what you guys run up there.
We got Pierces.
Perfect. So, Pierce came out. They turned around. He told me that, hey man, that valve is seized closed. There's nothing we're gonna have to replace the valve and all sorts of stuff. They did, and ever since then, white lithium grease. I turn around and I lube my. Whenever I lift the cap, she's gonna get a little bit of grease. Not every valve, not all the time. Sometimes I know, oh man, that valve's good and it doesn't need any more. And other times I gotta go down there and unfortunately I gotta clean off some of that grease and re-grease it. But that's stuff that an EO should be doing. Every time Pierce, whether it's Pierce, Ferrari, E1, whoever your manufacturer is, when they come out, or whether it's your own maintenance department, they come out and they say, hey, we got to do a PM on the truck, or hey, there's something wrong with it. Man, I feel bad for the guy's name is Todd, and he's the Pierce guy. He comes out and he works on our trucks, and I feel bad for Todd because Todd will turn around and there I am. What are you doing, Todd? What is that, Todd? What is that? And Todd's just like, well, this is this, and he's like, I'm sorry, man. Like, I know most guys don't come out here, but I want to know. I want to know not just what you're doing, but what does that? I'm asking the whys now.
Yeah.
So when it comes to Todd's unfortunately getting my whys, but that's those little things, right? We all could do that. Any one of us could turn around, go out, and just watch the maintenance guy work on a valve, or turn around and lube the truck. And those are little things that I think a good EO does. I'm not saying you're a bad EO if you don't, but I am saying that a good EO will go out there and loop some of this.
We have to be problem fixers when we don't have the mechanic there, or we don't have the Pierce rep there. We got to be we have to be the problem fixers when we're on scene and we're working heavy and something goes wrong. We have to trace our steps back, figure out what's going on. We might have to look inside somewhere to see if something's failed and how we can fix it on the spot. And that's a good pump operator. My previous department, man, it wasn't all bad. My history, I talk a lot about negatively about my previous department, but honestly, we had some good things, and our training was really top notch. And my training captain, who then turned into a chief, he was very good at the hands-on practical things. He always made sure you guys are not, I don't want lever pullers. I want you guys to be problem solvers. You need to understand what is going on with your pumps. You need to know your pressures, but if something backfires on you, you need to be able to trace your steps back and understand what happened, whether it's drafting, whether you're off a hydrant. You need to understand the science behind this. You need to understand the mechanics of it. And that always stuck in my head because he's absolutely right. Like, when shit hits the fan, I can't stop and ask my officer, hey, can you help me figure this thing out? No, he's in the building doing work. It's my responsibility to understand why something's not working. And I might even have to say on the radio, I got to shut my lines down, but you have to be able to have that confidence as a pump operator, say, hold on a second, something's not right. I got to shut this down and retrace my steps because I'm not going to be able to give you water. So I want you guys to live. So hold on a second and retrace your steps. It might have been something simple, right? You didn't engage the PTO, or you didn't put it in drive, and it might have been something that simple. It might maybe something more complex, but it's our job as pump operators to retrace our steps and figure out those problems. And if we can't figure it out, then we obviously can't waste time. We got to figure out, like, oh crap, this engine's not working. We got to figure something else out. But that's our job, to be able to say, hey, this engine is gone. This pump is not working. And we could tell them why. And it's what you said, man, it's a good pump operator is going to want to know why a lever is like this, or why you maintenance in that, why are you doing, like, those whys need to be asked, because when shit hits the fan, we can understand the mechanics behind it. You should be getting into your trucks, and my department is actually really good about that. We do a thorough check of our trucks before we start our shift. We're underneath that truck. We're checking everything. We're going inside and out to make sure that things are good, because God forbid something fails, it's on us. So you can't just pencil whip your truck checks as a pump operator. You really need to be, priming your pumps, checking your pressures, doing all the stuff that, we teach. We got to do it on each shift.
No, man, and you're 100%, man. My captain, I love him to death. He's a great guy. His name's Torres. A great guy. He lets me get away with a lot of stuff when it comes to my training. But man, one thing that kind of grinds his gears is our shift changes at 6 a.m. And sometimes 7 a.m. I roll around the corner and he's like, "How are you so dirty?" I was like, "I was under the pumper." And he's like, "What are you doing under the pumper?" I was like, I thought I saw an oil leak, so I went down there. And then I turned around, saw this water leak, so I tried to figure that out. And then, long story long, she's leaking oil. you know, and he's like, well, "You're filthy," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know." I go underneath there, and I just end up start crawling around, and then I'm like, "Well, I'm already here," so I'll call my fireman over. His name's Ortiz, and I'll be like, "Hey, man, bring me the lube, bring me the lithium," and I'm like, trying to get a valve. My ADHD kicks in, and next thing I know, I'm looking for an oil leak, and I'm lubing valves, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I got to look at that." Um, it's one of those things where I really like doing it. I love that. I mean, and surprisingly enough, I found like at least 3 flashlights and a radio down there underneath the pump. Yeah, they were, yeah,
That's different.
all magnets that the Pierce guys had stuck to the
Oh,
frame, just left.
that's funny.
And whenever Todd comes by, I'm like, "Hey Todd, here's another radio or here's another light, man. Take it back to the shop."
That's
Uh,
good, dude. I love that. That's funny. Thorough checks, dude. Like I'll check my wiper blades. Making sure those things are good, man, because those things get torn up. Things I love to do is I love to clean my dashboard. When I get in that truck, I'm taking the Windex and I am washing my dashboard. Make sure there's no dust on there, so when I get road glare, I can actually see it.
hell yeah.
I love making sure that my cab is clean, especially my side. The driver's side should be clean, free of dust, and ready to rock. I'm not, I'm not anal retentive too much, but I do like to make sure I got some cleanliness going on. And again, that's pride as a driver, as an operator, that you're loving your job. And for me, I say it all the time that as a pump operator, to me, it's a promotion, and we need to understand that. Like, it really is. In the Northeast, we don't really use our driver status as promotions. It's just kind of the next evolution of the game as being a firefighter. Is like, now you get, okay, now you're going to be driving. And I would love to see us do what we do in the Southwest. Like, it's something to be proud of. It's very important. It's a promotion. Like, I know a lot of areas in the Southwest, it's a big deal. Like, you're now like some get referred to as sergeants, or in that kind of genre. So it's a big responsibility, and you're next to that officer. After the officer gets out of that truck and he's doing work, you're it. Until somebody else comes up. But again, we were talking about that before. You're going to be on the radio. You're going to be checking conditions. You're going to be doing a lot of work, and you're ultimately the next person who's in line to help that officer out.
Oh yeah. Man, so it's crazy because like down here, a lot of times if you're an EO, you kind of run the house. As if you're in a single house company, a lot of times, my captain doesn't need to know that. Oh well, the fireman doesn't like the other fireman on B shift. They're getting into it. He doesn't need to know that. That falls onto my shoulders, and I have to take care of that. And a little bit of it's babysitting, argumentatively, but it's taking care of my guys really. But when we're missing something, it's my job to kind of hunt it down, figure it out, or give them my fireman. And normally, a lot of times, the captain gets told one of those like, "Hey, Cap, just FYI, this is missing. We looked for it, we couldn't find it. We contacted the other shift driver. He said he doesn't know where it's at. They went to a fire. Here's the address. We swing by later." And he'll be like, "All right, cool. Sounds like you have it handled." He has other stuff. He has administration stuff he has to do.
Mm-hmm.
He has to do his morning meeting with the chiefs and all that stuff. So he has a lot of stuff. So down here, you promote to EO, you tend to be kind of running the house a little bit. At least that's how we do it. Not everyone does it the same, of course, and that's cool, man. Where I used to work, we didn't have EOs. The senior firefighter drove. That's who drove. It was a senior guy. I know one of our neighboring departments has 3 ranks in firemen: fireman 1, 2, and 3. And if you're a fireman 3, you drive. You're not classified as an engine operator or a chauffeur. I got a weird question for you. What do you like? Do you like being called an engine operator? Do you like being called a chauffeur? I know that's a random question, but it's something that I like being called a chauffeur, to be 100% honest with you.
There's so many different terminologies out there because for us, we're called engine operators or pump operators. So yeah, we're kind of on the same genre, or the same description. So we're usually just we're referred to as engine operators or ladder operators. It's the same thing. But I know in other places, chauffeur. I think Boston refers to them as chauffeurs. So yeah, you have all these different terminologies. They're They're the same job, but yeah, I love all the different names that people have. Let's see, you also have what APOs,
APOs, yeah.
Yep. So it's all these different things, right? And then we have tankers and tenders. We're tankers up here. So
We are tankers as well. So tanker is a fire truck that has a lot of water.
yeah,
Tanker versus so that's what we call it that too. So though we get wildland fires, and some of those guys are like, which one we calling it? It's like, I'm still calling it a tanker. So that's what it is. But no, I understand, I get you, man. I just wondered. I like to
yeah,
talk to.
that's a great question, dude. I've always been called an engine operator, and so that's usually what I stick with, and I like that. I like the idea of chauffeur, but I do like the idea of just being, I'm an engine operator, driving the war wagon,
Hell yeah, man. I mean, that's what they call us too. My official title is engine operator, but a lot of times when I'm using it in an unofficial capacity, I just call myself a chauffeur. So I'm an engine chauffeur. But yeah, and we used to say engineer, but something happened and they took that away from us. They said we could no longer be engineers without a degree. That's what they told us. So I was like, okay, all right, so no problem, man. We won't do that no more.
That's funny.
But yeah, it's crazy.
Dude, I appreciate you, Pete. This has been a great conversation. Like, man, this flew by, and I feel like we're going to have another meeting again to talk about just the meat and potatoes of everything else of engine operators. Because, man, we didn't even dive into half the stuff we wanted to dive into. It was just a pleasure knowing you, pleasure talking to you, getting to know more about Pete Bowman.
I appreciate that, Mike. I'm sorry, man. I get to talking, and I'm sure Joe told you, man, like I'll get to talk and I'll start going.
Well, you guys seem like two peas in a pod because Joe loves to talk as well. So you guys are off the same cloth because, boy, that man could talk.
I'm going to catch so much shit for that later. But yes, you're right. You're 100% right. We are.
My man loves to talk, but everything that comes out of his mouth is gold, just like you, man. So it's great. I love to listen. That's what I'm here for, just to listen. I love to have other people talk and tell me who they are and what they're passionate about. So obviously we learned a lot about you and what you're passionate about. And I hope to have you on again and we could talk more about engine operators and just everything else that goes along with it. And, talking about pressures and talk about nozzle work and whatever you want to talk about. So
yeah, man, I'd love that, bro. And I'm sorry, man. Like I said, I didn't try and put it in a script or anything. I didn't try and keep on track. I would just show up and let's do it. So
let's do it. Yeah, no, man. Like I said earlier, we here on the C.A.N Report, it's just we go by the seat of our pants. We dive down some rabbit holes and see where we come out. So I enjoyed this conversation very much, Pete Bowman. And where again, if people want to get in contact you, is which department are you on?
I work for EasTex Fire Department, or Harris County Emergency Service District number 10. We're north of Houston, south of the city of Humble. We play with both, so we'll go to fires in both districts. And I'm very fortunate out at Station 26, man, on the D shift.
Fantastic. The D shift. All right. There's so many comments I want to say about the D shift. Well, it has been a pleasure. Pete Bowman, there he is. He's on social media. If you have any questions about what he does, the education that he provides, like he says, he does teach around a lot of areas. He obviously has PowerPoints that he can help you out with. I don't want to speak for you, but I imagine for most part, if he has a PowerPoint, he'd be willing to share it with people or be able to educate them. Am I right on that there, Pete?
100%, brother. Sharing the knowledge.
Love it. Yeah. So if you ever have any questions about what he offers for his education or need some ideas, hit him up. We'd love to share our knowledge, and that's what it's about, is giving back to everybody else so they can be better in their departments. Pete Bowman, thank you so much. I also love to leave it too, is I love to talk about the next rung, mental health. It's June. We talk about mental health in June. Actually, we should be talking about it all the time because it doesn't go away just because it's not June or May anymore. But mental health is super important to me. I love to talk about the boys at Next Rung, Blake Stennett, Charlie Brown, all the people that work there. Also Skulls for Hope. I got one of them here. I got two of them. Skulls for Hope. The guy, he is amazing. I love him very much. All of his product goes to help also with mental health. If you're struggling, if you need help, reach out to Next Rung. They have services there that can help you to get the help that you need. The first step is for you to actually talk about it, to ask for help. Don't struggle alone. We need you in this world. I believe in you. I want you here. Let's keep it together. Let's help each other out. It's the brotherhood. It's the sisterhood. We need to be there for each other. Sometimes it's uncomfortable to have those conversations with people, but that is the first step. If you don't talk about it, we don't know that you're struggling. So I want to say thank you to everybody for being a part of the C.A.N Report, listening to Pete Bowman. I really enjoyed it very much. I can't wait to have him on again. You all take care. You be safe. Nozzle Tov.